Lately, my whole adapter system workflow has really been bugging me. It's the whole thing, the whole workflow that I have a problem with. You have to get a special adapter that one will have power delivery, some will have, some will have like these little SD card ports, but it won't have a HDMI port. And as a content creator that bounces around from location to location, having to set up my dongles everywhere I go and then come home and then set all my permanent gear back into these dongles is just not a great workflow. I just really wish there was something out there that could solve this problem. Well, all right. Jokes aside, this is really how I feel about this thing. Really happy to have it here. And it's actually been plugged up this whole time in the intro of the video. So it's already fired up and we're gonna put it through its paces in this video. But first, if you guys could please hit the like button, leave a comment below, let me know what your current setup is, and let me know what you could do better with it. And subscribe to the channel for all things UAD Luna and also audio production. I don't always do these gear reviews, but when I have a chance to do it, I'm happy to do it. I know a lot of people have similar setups to me, and I know that they are dying to try things out like this, the SSL, you name it. So with that out of the way, let's go. Let's check this thing out. Thunderbolt 3 dock. I'm not going to do any of the nerdy like box opening stuff. I think everybody knows what that's like these days. But I will cover some of the technicals about this device. There's some very specific tidbits that you'd probably need to know if you're picking it up for your setup. I've followed this company for what seems like decades. I don't even know if they've been around that long. And I've watched them just get better and better and better. They do such a great job with their designs, and chances are if there's some sort of really weird adapter that you're looking for, something very specific to your workflow, they've already designed it, so go check out their website. On the back of the device, it has 4 USB 3.1 ports, SPDIF, 10 gigabit Ethernet, always handy, 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, one with power delivery, so that's the one that's going to connect to your computer. The other Thunderbolt 3 port is for connecting Thunderbolt 3 accessories. It also has a mini display port, a mini SD and full-size SD port, 3.5 millimeter headphone port, another USB-A type connector, and finally a USB-C connector. In the manual, there are no performance notes on the Thunderbolt 3 ports, so that means it should be backwards compatible with Thunderbolt 2, no problem. However, an important distinction that they do mention is that you're gonna want that Thunderbolt 2 port at the end of the chain. So if you have another Thunderbolt 3 device, make sure that you put that final Thunderbolt 2 device at the very end. And secondly, I thought this was really cool, but the USB-C port on the front of it, it's probably better if you look right here, but the USB-C port right here, oh, duh, I got B-roll. What am I doing? The USB-C port on the front of the device has its own bandwidth. And I think that that's absolutely sick, especially being that there are some USB-C SSD devices that have higher bandwidth. So if you were sharing that lane with something else, that would probably be a bit of a frustration for you if you're really putting it through its paces. So on that note, I am very curious, how does this thing perform? So obviously it's supporting my display, no problem. I've got my iLock already connected in the back. That's not going to take up hardly any bandwidth. But what about like SSDs? What if we do some stress tests there? And what will it do if I daisy chain my Apollo and I have my SSD running, and I have maybe I'm importing some footage from a camera? I'm super curious about these things because they're very, very important to my workflow. Now, I probably wouldn't be doing all of these things at once, but this is just for fun. Let's see what it can really do. So let's run the test. So first we need a baseline. Now I wanted to do this totally as pure as possible. So the baseline is going to be just this SSD on its own. And then we're going to do the SSD in a variety of different things. So here the first test is this. Let me get this going here. All right, so we got that drive going. Let me get my screen recorder. There we go, it's popped up. Let's go Blackmagic disk speed test. And we'll set our target drive to be just this device. Now normally I actually use my video production folder, so why don't I go ahead and do that and start a test. All right, it's pretty good so far. That's great speeds. All right, there we go. That's probably more realistic as you use the drive. Still reads really good. Yeah, so we're averaging about 1,300 and 2,400 read, 1,300 megabits per second, right somewhere in that range. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. And then the read is very consistent at 2,400 megabits per second. Now let's compare that to the actual Mac drive itself. So how fast does this read and write from the desktop? Let's see. All right, about 1,300 and about 25. Yep. Probably an average about 1,300, probably somewhere right around 25. So what this test really shows you is that working off one of these drives is basically just like working off the internal drive. Now this is why I always like these, and I highly recommend NVMe SSDs. So now that we did the baseline test, what do these numbers actually really mean? So first off, the 2,400 megabits per second really kind of translates to about 22, 23 gigabits per second. Now that number is really crucial in my opinion for these tests, because if you recall, the Thunderbolt 3 drive does 40 gigabits per second. So theoretically, that should mean that I have no problem with bandwidth across all of my devices, whether that be the SSL, the iLock, using this in the other Thunderbolt port, using my display. I should have enough bandwidth for all of that. And now that we've got our baseline test of just this device and this, let's go ahead and stress test it while the Thunderbolt 3 dock is connected. Okay, for test number 2, what are we doing here? So we've got our NVMe drive connected to the Thunderbolt 3 dock, and the Thunderbolt 3 dock is connected to the computer. And that's all we're doing. This is test number 2. Let's see how it does. All right. That's awesome. That's the exact same. It's performing the exact same as before. We're getting an average write speed somewhere around 1,500, 1,300. It's actually a little bit higher, really. Okay, so just comparing it in this second test, I'm actually very impressed with the results. It makes sense too from a bandwidth standpoint. I mean, theoretically nothing should have changed. We are still sending information to my screen here, which does take up some bandwidth, but there's still plenty of bandwidth to reach the same kind of speeds with this particular drive. So no problems there. But what happens when we throw everything at it? What happens when we do a stress test? Okay, so what do we got going on here? This is a just spinning disk drive. It's USB-C based. So let's connect that. I've got my SD card. So let's try to copy data from here, and then also do the disk speed test. Let's see how that works. All right, awesome. Sweet. Copy. Let's copy something here. All right, cool. We got a bunch of footage for that. So here's the LaCie folder that we're going to copy to. Here's the SD one that we're going to copy to. Okay, so we got 44 gigs. Now I'm not gonna time this or anything like that. I really just wanna see if my disk speed changes. Let's start this. Boom, we got some stuff there. Start copying, boom, there we go. Okay, speed test. Okay. Okay, all right. To be expected. All right, that's good. That is really cool. Awesome. All right, let's stop these. All right, that's pretty cool. I don't know, leave a comment below. Let me know if you expected that to work in that manner. I thought it did a great job. I really did. I thought it did a phenomenal job. There was a slight, the ever so slightest decrease in read speed. The write speed actually went a little bit higher, but generally speaking, we're right in that same ballpark. So again, the bandwidth, the 40 gigabits per second, is plenty of bandwidth to share amongst all of the different devices that you'll have connected. I do a ton of video editing, so I don't really know a situation where I'd be both copying information from my SD and from this drive and also writing a bunch of data on the other drives. I really don't know that situation, but you can do that, so that's really cool. So now that the results are out of the way from this stress test, how does this really work in the real world? How does it fit within my workflow? First, thank the good Lord that somebody designed something like this. It's really cool to have a bunch of the ports on the back side connecting my more permanent devices, and then access to some of the peripherals on the front side. That was really clever thinking and great for this kind of a setup. Again, in my situation, I have a Blackmagic dongle that I'm always kind of taking with me if I'm traveling, or if Kat needs to edit something on her computer. We kind of just bounce back and forth on the two different edit setups. And having to do like a weird dongle thing in the back and mess around with that is just too much of a pain. Now, my setup's incredibly efficient, incredibly simple. It's just one cable that's simultaneously powering the computer, connecting my interface, connecting some of my other peripherals and dongles that are permanent, and also giving me access on the front to connect some of those peripherals that are more mobile and that I use in the field a lot more often. So I'm way too tech happy about this thing, so really cool. I want to go back to that stress test just for a second. That's not the best stress test. Of course, I didn't just put it in a vacuum and connect like drive after drive to the back and daisy chain a bunch of Thunderbolt devices and do all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's realistic. If you're going to be in that situation, you're probably going to be doing something different in general. You're probably like on a server farm, or maybe you're mining Bitcoin or something like that. I don't know. You're probably not going to be going this route in that situation anyway. So yeah, my test that I threw together was just something fun to really see what I could throw at it in terms of, will it slow down my other drives while I'm writing and reading from other drives. So really cool that it didn't impact it at all. And again, in a real world scenario, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be transferring my footage off an SD card to my drives first. Any sort of bottleneck that I run into is going to be from the SD card itself, not from the bandwidth of the Thunderbolt dock. Now, I've had this connected for a couple days now, and I haven't seen any sort of weird glitches with my Thunderbolt Apollo. I can tell you that there are some weird side effects if you have daisy chaining setups that require bus power. That's not some sort of a fault through the Thunderbolt dock. That actually could be the device that you're daisy chaining to, not providing enough power to whatever bus power device that you need. So long story short, do I see any sort of performance decrease in the real world? Not a bit. My drives are still reading and writing at that speed that I need them to in order to do my video editing. My Apollo interface is still slamming. I think this kind of a dock is really going to help out for those M1 users that need to connect their Apollos, need to connect some extra peripherals and dongles, maybe a MIDI keyboard, and still power their device through one cable while leaving the other Thunderbolt port open for some sort of other peripheral or other dock. So my final thoughts here, this dock is the absolute ultimate dock for me, for you, for many other creative professionals. I think OWC really knocked it out of the park with this one. I think if you pick this dock up, I think you're gonna really love working with it. I think it's gonna make your life a lot easier, especially if you have a workflow similar to mine where you have some really permanent peripherals, but you still travel, you still use things on the go. So it's really easy to just unplug it from this dock, travel, bring those old dongles with you, as much as I hate to say it. Bring those with you, leave this here. If you came to this video because you were on the fence and now you've kind of seen a real world example, you're excited to pick it up and you want to pick it up, check out the link in the description to get you there quicker. Now, I'm not getting paid whatsoever for this review. There's no sort of royalties if you click the link in the description. That's there just solely so it's quicker and more convenient for you watching. Anyways, if you enjoyed this type of a video, again, I don't do these kinds of things often on my channel, but I'm considering doing them more frequently if you're interested in watching them. So please give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Leave a comment below, let me know your thoughts on the dock. Subscribe to the channel for more. And if you'd like to support the channel further, go to thestevekinney.com. I have presets. You can schedule one-on-one time with me. It's a great way to allow me to do more things like this in the future. YouTube hasn't monetized me, and I've been waiting on it for almost a year now. Kind of crazy. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. Cheers.